Hello. They laughed at him, mocked him, called him a joke. He walked into a luxury car dealership in a hoodie, young, black, and quiet. To them, he didn't belong. What they didn't know was that he was about to cost them everything. Because his father wasn't just wealthy, he owned the very world they thought they ruled. And it's not just a story about racism. It's a story about what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. The mirrored glass doors to Ambrose and Langston Luxury Motors hissed open with a smooth mechanical sigh, spilling soft jazz into the sunlit morning. Inside, rows of high-end machines gleamed like caged animals: Lamborghinis, Bentleys, Porsches, and a custom McLaren P1 behind velvet rope, labeled Private Viewing, by invite only. It was a showroom built for fantasy, and fantasies here had a price tag north of $200,000. That morning, the illusion broke the moment Jordan Matthews stepped through the door. 19 years old, tall, black, wearing spotless white sneakers, dark jeans, and a black hoodie with the word unapologetic scrawled across the chest. His hands were in his pockets. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes, scanning the cars with quiet admiration, didn't match the nervous, fidgety energy they were expecting. Behind the glass-topped front desk, Becky Foster, 29, blonde, surgically tanned, and glued to her phone, stopped chewing gum mid-scroll. "Well, that's different," she muttered, eyes never leaving the boy. "Excuse me," said her co-worker, Greg Whitman, mid-40s, tailored down to the cufflinks, a tie knotted tighter than his attitude. He looked up from the monitor and followed her gaze. His smirk grew into a sneer. "You've got to be kidding me. This kid's looking for Wi-Fi, not wheels." Becky laughed. "Or he's lost. Maybe he thinks this is a Foot Locker." Jordan took a slow lap around a blood-red Lamborghini Aventador, examining the lines, peering at the interior. Not touching anything, just looking, respectfully. But that didn't matter here. Presence alone was a threat. Greg stood up from behind the desk, adjusting his blazer with a theatrical sigh. "Let's go rescue him before he steals the ashtray," he said, loud enough for Becky to giggle and for Jordan to hear. Jordan turned his head slightly. He heard, but he said nothing. Greg strode over, his smile fixed and sharp like a broken bottle. "Hey, buddy. This isn't really the place for browsing, okay? These aren't rentals. And we don't do Instagram shoots here. I'm here to buy a car," Jordan said matter of fact. Greg blinked. "Sure. And I'm here to sell you the moon. Listen, if you're looking to kill time before your bus comes, there's a food court at the mall down the street." "I have an appointment," Jordan said again. 11 a.m. With Mr. Keene. Greg glanced back at Becky and raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. "Oh, you hear that, Bex? The gentleman has an appointment," he said, exaggerating the word like a bad actor. Jordan's jaw tightened slightly. He tried to ignore the deliberate tone. Greg leaned in closer, lowering his voice just enough to be sinister. "Let me guess. You watched a couple of rap videos, saw someone hopping out a Lumbo, and thought you'd try your luck today? Sorry to disappoint, little man, but we don't lease to aspirational dreamers." Jordan took a breath. "I don't lease. I buy." Becky stood from behind the desk, now watching with open curiosity. "Well, maybe he hit the lotto," she chirped. "Or maybe his business is cash only, if you know what I mean." Greg chuckled. "What is it, bud? Drop shipping? Crypto scams? Little late to be flexing on that wave." Jordan remained silent. Greg looked him up and down. "I mean, come on. Look at you. Hoodie, jeans, and baby sneakers. I got loafers that cost more than your outfit." Jordan's lips parted slightly. "And yet you still work on commission," he said. Becky coughed, caught between a laugh and a gasp. Greg's smirk vanished. His cheeks flushed a dull red. "That was cute," he snapped. "Real cute. You know what's not cute? Wasting my time. You don't get to strut in here like you're somebody. This is Ambrose and Langston. You don't even belong on the sidewalk outside." Jordan exhaled slowly. The fire in his chest burned, but he swallowed it. He'd seen this play before. He'd grown up knowing the choreography. Greg leaned back, arms crossed. "Look, I get it. You want to pick for your TikTok. Park yourself next to the Bugatti, hit a pose, rack up some likes. Do your thing, just don't touch the cars. Or security'll walk you out by the laces." Becky leaned against the counter, now clearly enjoying the show. "Maybe we should call on Mr. Keene early. Let him know his 11 a.m. appointment is a whole vibe. Or a prank," Greg added. "Maybe someone's screwing with us." Jordan turned his back to them, and walked toward the McLaren behind the velvet rope. It was custom built, one of a kind, matte silver with red accents. Engine purring under the showroom lights. That one's not for sale, Greg called. It's special order. Invitation only. You can't afford to breathe near it. Jordan paused at the edge of the rope. I know, he said softly. My dad ordered it. Becky raised an eyebrow. You mean like he ordered it from a YouTube ad? Greg burst out laughing. Right. Sure he did. What's his name then? Snoop Dogg? Kanye. Jordan turned around. His face was still calm, but his eyes were glowing now, like flint under pressure. I told you. I have an appointment, he repeated. So why don't we wait for Mr. Keene to show up and settle this? Greg scoffed. You really think Mr. Keene's going to waste time on you? Kid, he sells cars to royalty. Athletes. Old money. CEOs. People who matter. Becky checked her nails. Let's be honest, he's not stepping out of his office for someone who looks like you. Jordan looked from one to the other. Their confidence. Their cruelty. Their laughter. And still, he said nothing. He simply walked to the leather couch and sat. Greg scoffed again. Suit yourself, boss. Hope your Uber home doesn't take too long. He turned to Becky. I'll go prep for the real 11 o'clock. Jordan sat silently on the leather couch beneath a chandelier made of crystal and pretension. The room hummed with a cold elegance. Across the showroom, Greg sipped his espresso and Becky leaned against the reception desk, her phone angled discreetly to capture a blurry photo of the kid in the hoodie. Honestly, Becky whispered, sliding the image into a group chat labeled Dealership Drama Fire. He looks like he wandered in from a bus stop. Should I ask if he wants to fill out a janitor application? Greg snorted. Maybe he thinks if he looks hard enough at the McLaren, it'll drive itself into his fantasy life. They laughed again. Loud, unfiltered, certain they were in control. Jordan said nothing. His hoodie might have been casual, but his mind was razor sharp. He sat upright, poised, just watching, like a chess player waiting out the smug opening moves of an amateur. The minutes ticked by. At 11:03 a.m., a man emerged from the frosted glass office at the back of the showroom. Mr. Robert Keene. Tall, lean mid-50s. White suit, gold tie, hair perfectly parted. A name in the luxury auto world, known for selling six-figure machines with handshake deals and charm-soaked smiles. But that smile flickered the moment he saw Jordan. He scanned the room, clearly expecting someone else. His gaze passed over the boy on the couch, then returned with a small crease forming on his forehead. Young man, Keene said, stepping forward. May I help you? Jordan rose calmly. You're Mr. Keene? Keene nodded, eyes narrowing. I'm Jordan Matthews. We have an appointment at 11. There was a pause, long enough to feel like a spotlight. Keene's brows lifted just slightly. You're? Jordan Matthews. Jordan nodded again. Keene hesitated, then reached for a clipboard from the front desk. He scanned the appointment sheet, lips tightening. Well, he muttered. Punctual. I'll give you that. Greg suddenly reappeared like a bad actor who'd missed his cue. Mr. Keene, sorry I didn't flag you earlier. We were just trying to sort things out with our young guest here. Keene glanced at Greg. Sort what out? Becky stepped in. We didn't know he had an appointment, sir. He, didn't look like the usual clientele. Keene eyed them both, but said nothing. Instead, he turned back to Jordan. May I ask how you scheduled this meeting? My father called last week, Jordan said plainly. He said you'd take care of me. Keene blinked. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Doubt. Maybe recognition. Your father's name? He asked carefully. Jordan opened his mouth to speak, but Greg interrupted before the name could fall. Okay, let's cut the act, he scoffed. No offense, kid, but this whole charade is wasting everybody's time. I don't know what hustle you're playing at, but let me save you the embarrassment. This showroom isn't for test driving dreams. This is where people buy. Jordan's expression didn't change. I told you. I'm here to buy. Becky crossed her arms. With what? A GoFundMe. Greg shook his head. Listen, we get it. You wanted to play make-believe, take a few pictures, maybe tell your friends you touched a Ferrari. But you've made your point. You can leave now. Mr. Keene still stood silent, watching, his expression unreadable. Jordan slowly turned his gaze to him. Is this how you treat all your appointments? Keene exhaled through his nose. Tell me, Mr. Matthews, what's your budget? Jordan tilted his head slightly. You mean today? A beat. Yes, Keene replied. Jordan's answer came without hesitation. 500,000. There was a second of stunned silence. Becky choked on her laughter. Greg outright guffawed. 500,000? What, Monopoly money? You got that in crypto or V-Bucks? Jordan met his eyes and said nothing. Greg wasn't finished. Okay, let's say, in some twisted miracle, you're not lying. Where's the proof? You got a bank statement? A black card? Hell, you got a debit card that doesn't bounce. He took a step closer, voice dripping with venom. Because here's the deal, Jordan. You walk in here dressed like a SoundCloud rapper, making claims like that, and we're supposed to just believe you? Sorry, no. This place has standards. He spat the last word like it was holy. You want to be treated like a serious buyer? Show up looking like one. Not like you're about to shoplift a steering wheel. Jordan's fingers curled slightly at his sides. Not from anger. From restraint. Greg grinned. He could taste the power. Or maybe you thought flashing a fake number would get you into our good graces. Maybe you were hoping to catch a lucky break. Let's be real. You're just another broke wannabe looking to sit in a car you'll never own. Becky snapped her gum and added, maybe he thought if he got a ride in the McLaren, he could flex it on TikTok, get a few thousand likes, and maybe some white girl DMs. Greg chuckled. Don't give him ideas. Mr. Keene held up a hand, as if to calm the situation. Enough. Let's not get carried away. But he didn't tell them to stop. He didn't apologize. He didn't act surprised. Because deep down, he didn't believe Jordan either. Jordan let the silence hang. Then, finally, he pulled out his phone. I told you, he said again, this time quietly. You can talk to my dad. He dialed. 1 ring. Then 2. Greg rolled his eyes. Keene folded his arms. And Becky whispered, this is going to be so good. Jordan lifted the phone to his ear. Hey, Dad, he said calmly. You were right. They didn't believe me. A pause. Yeah. Could you come down here? He glanced at Keene. They're going to need some clarification. The air in Ambrose and Langston had grown heavy. Not with noise, but with something worse, expectation. Jordan stood silent after ending the call, tucking his phone back into the pocket of his hoodie. Across the showroom, Greg leaned against the wall, smirking, while Becky returned to the front desk, furiously typing on her phone, probably texting her group chat again. Greg scoffed. So, what now? Your dad is gonna roll up in a rental Kia and try to negotiate payments with used laptops. Becky added with a grin. Maybe he'll bring some SoundCloud merch to trade. Or a mixtape. Limited edition. Greg chuckled darkly. Hey, maybe we'll put the kid behind the wheel of the McLaren. Take a few selfies. Then escort him out before he drools on the seats. Mr. Keene said nothing. He just watched the boy like one might study a storm cloud on the edge of a sunny day, something you didn't quite believe, but couldn't quite ignore. Then, a quiet noise cut through the tension, the smooth hiss of hydraulic doors opening once more. A car pulled up just outside the glass. Not a Kia, not a rental, but a Rolls-Royce Phantom, matte black, sitting low and regal on custom wheels that bore an engraved emblem, Matic Group. The moment it parked, the room shifted. Not the furniture, not the temperature, the power. The driver's side door opened, and Charles Matthews stepped out. He wasn't dressed like money. Not loud. Not showy. A dark suit, crisp. A wristwatch that whispered its value only to those who understood. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair, dark skin, and a presence so heavy it made Greg instinctively stand straighter. A pause. A silence thick enough to carve. Then Jordan said quietly, Dad. Charles Matthews looked at his son first. Not the employees. Not the showroom. His gaze softened as he approached and placed a steady hand on Jordan's shoulder. Did they treat you well? Jordan didn't answer. He didn't have to. Charles's eyes moved. From Becky, to Greg, and finally to Mr. Keene. That's when the unraveling began. Charles, calmly. Are you the manager? Keene cleared his throat. I am. Robert Keene, sir. And may I say, if we had known. Charles cut him off. Known what? Keene hesitated. That your son was a client. Charles's voice dropped to an icy calm. You mean if he didn't look like someone you think belongs here? Keene raised his hands. Mr. Matthews, I assure you. You assured him nothing, Charles snapped, not raising his voice, but commanding the silence like a courtroom judge. You watched while your staff mocked him, dismissed him, humiliated him. You let your salesman speak to him like he was trash. He turned to Greg. You, he said flatly, called my son a thief, a scammer, a joke. Greg's mouth opened, but Charles raised one finger. Don't lie. I heard the whole thing. Greg blinked. Sir, I didn't know who he was. But you thought you did. Charles turned to Becky. And you? You laughed at him, mocked him, took pictures. You couldn't imagine that a young black man in a hoodie could walk into a place like this for any reason other than theft or fantasy. Becky stammered. I was just... Charles held up a hand. Stop. You've already said enough. Then he pulled out his phone. Dialed. Martin. Yes, it's me. Pull the offer. Immediately. A beat of silence. No, I'm serious. Tell the board I'm retracting the acquisition. I don't want to be associated with any brand that employs this level of rot. He hung up. Slowly. Greg's face turned pale. What? What acquisition? Charles looked at him, then Keen. I was in talks to purchase a controlling share of Ambrose and Langston. Multi-million-dollar expansion. New flagship location in LA, another in Dubai. I had planned to make this location a central pillar. He turned his body toward them, each word like a blade. Your arrogance cost you all of it. Keen looked like he had been slapped. Mr. Matthews, please, there must be a way to rectify. Charles's voice was a whip. You had your chance. It walked in at 11 a.m., dressed in a hoodie, and you laughed him out of the room. A long pause. The only sound was the hum of expensive engines and the slow crumbling of careers. Charles turned to his son. Pick a car. Jordan looked up. Dad? Charles smiled faintly. Anyone you want, including that McLaren. It's already been paid for, but if you want something different, we'll take it. Jordan didn't move. Charles turned to the staff. We'll have the paperwork handled elsewhere. This location won't be getting the commission. Greg stepped forward. Sir, please, this is a misunderstanding. Charles stared at him. I'm not interested in apologies from people who only regret getting caught. Then he pulled out his wallet and laid a single black card on the counter. Charles, quietly. Just so we're clear. Becky stared at the card as if it were radioactive. It had no numbers. No name. Just a platinum crest in the corner. The kind only a few people in the world are invited to hold. Greg's hands dropped to his sides. His shoulders slumped. Becky looked ready to cry. Keen spoke softly, broken. I didn't realize he was... Charles cut him off. You didn't care who he was. And that's the problem. By the time Charles Matthews and his son walked out of Ambrose and Langston, the dealership's front doors closed behind them like the end of a courtroom verdict. Silence hung in the air long after the Rolls-Royce pulled away. But it didn't last. Inside, the staff stood frozen, no longer laughing. Becky was the first to move, frantically typing on her phone again. Not a joke this time. Not for the group chat. She was Googling. Charles Matthews, net worth. The results hit her like a punch to the chest. Forbes profiles. Fortune covers. A viral TED Talk. $78 million net worth. CEO of MadTech, the revolutionary software firm that powered nearly every major corporate security network in the country. Greg looked over her shoulder. His face fell. You're joking. Becky's voice was hollow. No. We just humiliated the son of one of the richest tech moguls in America. Greg backed up, hands to his head. I called him a scammer. I told him not to breathe on the McLaren. Oh, God. Keen was already on his phone, pacing. Yes, sir, of course I'm aware, he said, his voice brittle. Yes. No, it wasn't me, but yes, I'll handle it. It was my staff. Yes, I know the board will want answers. Please, just give me a chance to, hello. The line went dead. He turned slowly, eyes bloodshot. Do you have any idea what you've done? He snapped at Greg and Becky. We had a deal. A real deal. Do you know how rare those are in this economy? Matthews was going to buy us. He was the reason we were about to expand. Greg tried to protest. He looked like. What? Keen roared. Say it. Say what you want to say. Greg went silent. His tongue, finally, had no words. Becky looked pale. We didn't know. Keen cut her off with a glare. You didn't ask. You assumed. You judged. And now we're finished. He turned, picked up the phone again, and began dialing corporate HR. But outside the walls of Ambrose and Langston, the story was just getting started. By noon, someone had posted a TikTok, a blurry shot of Jordan sitting silently on the couch while Greg berated him in the background. Another angle showed Becky taking his picture and laughing. Captions did the rest. They told this black kid he couldn't afford a car. Turns out his dad owns the building. Hashtag hoodie boy, hashtag luxury fail, hashtag racism unmasked. The clip spread like wildfire. By 2 p.m., it was on Twitter. By 3 o'clock, it was being picked up by local news outlets. Son of tech billionaire humiliated at luxury dealership. executive sale withdrawn. By 5 o'clock, it was on CNN. Meanwhile, at a quiet home in North Atlanta, Jordan sat in his room, staring at the chaos he never intended to create. His phone buzzed nonstop. Classmates, cousins, strangers. Thousands of messages, many from people thanking him, others sharing their own stories of being followed in stores, denied test drives, or dismissed in lobbies because they didn't look the part. Jordan scrolled quietly, then turned to his father. "I didn't mean for this to blow up like this." Charles nodded. "You didn't have to. It blew up because people are tired. Tired of being told they don't belong unless they're wearing the right suit, speaking the right way, carrying the right skin." Jordan looked down. "I just wanted to buy a car." His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you will. But what you got today?" He nodded at the screen. "That's bigger than a McLaren. That's a crack in the facade." Back at Ambrose and Langston, the fallout began. At 6:45 p.m., corporate issued a press release. "We do not tolerate discrimination of any kind. The employees involved in the incident have been placed on immediate leave pending internal review." The message was cold, clinical, too late. The following day, the dealership's Yelp page had over 12,000 one-star reviews. Google disabled comments after the volume triggered spam filters. Protesters began to gather outside the building, holding signs. "A hoodie isn't a crime. Judge me by my credit score, not my skin. We belong here too." Greg tried to sneak in through the side door. He was recognized immediately. Someone live-streamed it. "Yo, is that the dude who said, 'Don't breathe near the McLaren'?" The camera zoomed in as Greg rushed inside, covering his face. Becky never returned. Her Instagram was flooded with DMs, most of them not kind. She tried to go private. It was too late. The screenshots had spread. And then came the letter. From Charles Matthews' lawyer, hand-delivered to Ambrose and Langston Corporate. Effective immediately, the Matthews Group is launching a formal investigation into the conduct, training, and ethical standards of your brand. We reserve the right to pursue further action under the Civil Rights Act and relevant consumer protection statutes. We will also be launching an initiative to create a network of luxury dealerships owned and operated by individuals from underrepresented communities, one where professionalism will not be dictated by skin color or designer labels. We suggest you prepare for competition." Narrator, soft, firm. They wanted him to feel small, to humiliate him, but they only revealed how small they were. What they meant for embarrassment became a spark, and soon, that spark would burn down the old ways. It had been 1 week since the firestorm ignited inside Ambrose and Langston, and nothing was the same. The dealership's once pristine showroom now sat behind locked doors. The windows, once polished to a mirror shine, were now plastered with tape reading "closed for restructuring." The luxury cars had been cleared out overnight, hauled away not because of demand, but because no one wanted to be seen buying them there anymore. The company's CEO issued a televised apology. It didn't land. Because the world had already watched the footage, Jordan, seated calmly on a leather couch, while Greg barked insults in front of a McLaren he'd never even sat in. Because the world had already seen the screenshots of Becky's text messages, leaked by someone in corporate, jokes about thugs and sneakers, and woke PR disasters. No apology could unmake what was said. No statement could rewind the clock. Greg lost his job, his reputation, his license to sell luxury vehicles revoked by the state board. The news listed it plainly. Pattern of discriminatory conduct, verbal abuse, customer intimidation. But it wasn't just about paperwork. It was about humiliation. Greg's name became shorthand online for exactly the kind of man he'd been. Pulling a Greg trended for days, a term used when someone judged a person's worth by their clothes, only to be proven devastatingly wrong. He tried to go dark on social media. Didn't work. The internet never forgets. Becky faced even worse. The group chat she thought was private? Screenshotted. Shared. Turns out she had a long history of mocking customers who didn't fit the vibe. Brands she once modeled for dropped her immediately. Her influencer partnerships vanished overnight. She uploaded a tearful apology on Instagram. It got 500,000 views and 3 times as many sarcastic stitches. "Maybe next time," one TikToker said, lip-syncing her crying face. "Don't try to go viral at someone else's expense." Mr. Keene was quietly forced into retirement. Corporate called it a mutual decision. But insiders knew the truth. The board couldn't risk keeping a man who stood idle while racism bloomed in his showroom. A clause in Charles Matthews' original acquisition proposal returned with a vengeance. A new bidder, A diversity-forward group of investors backed by the Matthews Group placed an offer instead. Within 2 months, Ambrose and Langston had a new name: Matthews Reserve, a luxury dealership chain built on equity, service, and accountability. As for Jordan, he didn't speak to the media. He didn't post about the story, but he did show up for the grand opening of the first Matthews Reserve location, this one in Atlanta. He wore a hoodie, same one as before. White letters across the chest, unapologetic. He smiled as he cut the ribbon. Some people, the new general manager said on stage, are raised thinking they belong in every room. Others are raised to believe they need permission. At Matthews Reserve, we don't need permission to walk in. We build the room ourselves. After the ceremony, a journalist caught up to Jordan. "You think what happened at the old dealership had to happen?" she asked, notebook ready. Jordan looked at the rows of polished cars behind him. "No," he said simply. "But I'm glad it did." She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because it reminded a lot of people what power really looks like. It doesn't always wear a tie. Sometimes it wears a hoodie and walks in quiet. And there you have it. In a world where first impressions can be brutal and often biased, stories like this are striking a chord online. It's not just about cars or money. It's about dignity, justice, and standing tall when the world tries to shrink you. If this story moved you, you're not alone. It's part of a growing trend on YouTube. Real stories exposing inequality, flipping power dynamics, and reminding us all that respect isn't something you earn with a suit. It's something you owe to every human being. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that speak truth to power. Goodbye.